Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Roseville Wrecking Ball. The Roseville Wrecking Ball.
Joshua Shrum. He is a very talented steward, very knowledgeable.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. This is one of those podcasts where I listen to every episode. I love what he's putting out there.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. Josh Shrum.
Parcels of Knowledge. Does a fantastic job with that podcast.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball. He is an Article 8 scholar, and thank God. We need Article 8 scholars right now.
Tune into the Parcels of Knowledge podcast while you're on the route. That's the mailman's playbook, brother.
Good morning, and welcome back to Parcels of Knowledge, that podcast dedicated to delivering knowledge to the city letter carrier with your host, the Roseville Wrecking Ball. Today, we're going to talk about undelivered mail. But first, let me talk about what our special guest on next Saturday. We're going to have Orlando Gonzalez from Branch 36 on the podcast on Saturday, and we're going to interview them for their run for NALC Region 15 NBA. They're a candidate under the CLC, and they're going to be asked any question you guys send in. So don't forget to send me your questions as soon as possible. That would be to the email address, rosevillewreckingball@yahoo.com. That is rosevillewreckingball@yahoo.com. And by the way, I will put that in the episode's description, just in case you need to know how to spell that. All right? So I was on Next Generation Carriers organizing Zoom last night, and I think it went fairly well. You know, we're in a fight for the future of the Postal Service, and more importantly, a fight for our own livelihoods. But we often overlook our most powerful weapon, the court of public opinion. Lately, I've seen a dangerous trend where the USPS is no longer delivering on its universal service of prompt and reliable delivery of the mail. I'm here to say that when we allow the mail to sit on the floor, we aren't just losing hours of work. We're losing the public's trust, and that trust is the most important leverage we have. The NALC, as an institution, has not shown us any support in keeping the public on our side. Need I remind you that we didn't just take a job, we took an oath, that we did solemnly swear that we will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that we will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that we take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that we will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which we were about to enter. Have we forgotten our purpose? Let me remind you. We were created by the U.S. Constitution as a service to bind the nation together through the personal, educational, literary, and business correspondence of the people. We have a universal service obligation, one to each and every community in the United States, however large or small, one in which each and every letter carrier who came before us carried that burden through the rain, sleet, and snow, creating pillars of the community. We have a reputation as being the most trusted government agency in the United States. Let us not let the work of those who stood before us go in vain. The law is clear. They do not have the discretion to ignore service standards. When they leave routes undelivered, while having every resource to deliver them, they are failing the American people and violating the very laws that justify our existence as a public service. The NALC is only as strong as the public's demand for our service. When a patron reserves their medicine, their Social Security check, or even just their mail on time, they become an ally. They will be willing to call their congresspeople to protect our benefits. They will stand with us during the contract disputes. But the moment we become unreliable, the moment first-class mail becomes whenever we get to it mail, we become replaceable in the eyes of the public. If the public stops caring if the mail shows up, they will no longer stand with us in our times of need. We have to hold management's feet to the fire. We need to start demanding that this organization live up to its legal mandates. Our contract gives management the right to manage, but it does not give them a right to manage the Postal Service into the ground by ignoring the law. Let's protect our service, protect our reputation, and by doing so, protect our future. America, we deliver for you. They mismanage for themselves. We have been carrying the weight of management's failures for far too long, and it is time to fix the Postal Service. That being said, I have long been a proponent of filing this as a grievance. I personally think that it's more appropriate to be a national grievance. And in prior episodes, I have also talked about the contentions as it pertains to the law and the universal service obligation that we have. At the end of this episode, I will go through a proposal for the convention in which, if you're trying to find the arguments for the law, you can look at that proposal and it will give you those arguments, although I did go over them in the past. The proposal I'm trying to propose is basically to get the NALC to take a contractual position that this is a violation. That's why it's got the bones of the contentions right in there. But I have found two other ways to fight this issue. I don't know if it should be filed as a separate grievance or the same. We are going to put it in our grievance as the same, because we're just going to put as many arguments as we can together to try and fight this. I was talking to JB, and I guess he said he listens to the podcast, but honestly, I'm not sure how he didn't know I was fighting undelivered mail as a grievance. But he came to the conclusion that we were fighting it for two different items, a violation. And I thought his was very smart. His route is not going to be something that everybody will be able to fit the bill. So this is going to have a few different things. It's going to have coordination with the branch president or whoever else may have signed your LMOU. And it's going to have particular language that could exist in your LMOU, but doesn't necessarily have to. In fact, sometimes it could be considered a conflict with the national agreement, especially in the way that we're going to use this. So many LMOUs in their item 3, and it doesn't have to be item 3, but whatever item discusses the curtailment of mail, normally that is understood to be under emergency conditions. But a lot of us have two different things in our LMOUs that could be used. One is a notification. A lot of times in our LMOUs, it says that management must notify either the NALC or every single carrier or affected carriers whenever curtailment of mail occurs. Secondarily, other people might have things in their LMOUs regarding when curtailment of mail occurs. Now, of course, we haven't looked at these items through this particular lens, but Step B often requires the intent of the people who signed it in order to establish a decision, because a lot of times they'll try and take the easy way out and say, hey, we are experts at interpreting the national agreement, but we don't know how to interpret your LMOU. So, for example, Roseville has a provision in their LMOU that would work out perfectly. Item 3, Section 2, and it states, the paramount factor in making any decision about providing or continuing mail service is the safety of the personnel involved. Postal services will be provided in our community only as long as it is safe and practicable to do so under the general guideline of the safety of the employees involved. So first, if you have anything such as this, I would first get an intent statement from your branch president. I'm going to ask my branch president either to write an intent saying that he intended for mail to always be delivered unless it was unsafe, or if he otherwise does not feel comfortable signing a statement of that nature, well, then I'm going to interview him and say, hey, when you made this provision, what was your intent here? Or otherwise, I might ask him, did you intend for mail to go undelivered and for reasons other than safety throughout the year? And of course, he's going to say, no, I hope. And, we can say that this is a provision of our LMOU that's inconsistent with the national agreement, because we can at least say that, yes, Article 3 gives management the right to manage, but it says here that the paramount factor in determining that is safety. So for that reason, just like with questioning management's changing of start times, they have the right to change it, but they're supposed to consider particular considerations. Then I can go forward, interview my management team, ask them what their considerations were. Of course, it was penalty. At least at my station, they curtailed mail because of penalty. That's not anywhere near safety. I'm going to ask, was the carriers, were they safe when the mail was being curtailed? Were they able to safely deliver this mail? I would hope that they say yes. You see where I'm going with this? You can use your item 3 provisions potentially to set management up for an additional contention. And another way to do this, outside of, I don't have a notification provision, but some LMOUs do. So in your LMOU, if you have a notification provision, you can at least get them on the fact that they didn't notify you every time they curtail mail. At least file a grievance for the notification. I would file that one separately. And if they didn't notify you, annoy them. It's kind of like with investigative interviews or any other thing. If you make it as hard as possible, sometimes they try to avoid it. So if you start filing for the notification of curtailment of mail because they failed to notify you, and then you get to the point where you get $50 escalation, well, then they might do everything they can to avoid that additional cost and thus actually get the mail delivered. So that was one of the 2 new contentions that I haven't talked about yet. The second one is not as strong, but it's still something that you should stick into your case file. And that is the circumvention of other rights. So in our contract, we use the JCAM to let the national parties interpret the national agreement. And in doing so, we point to particular things as appropriate via the national parties. For example, one of the reasons why we say escalated remedies are appropriate is because in Article 41, it talks about how in a particular Article 41 situation, if it becomes egregious, you can get additional monetary awards. So we say, look, the national parties have already agreed this is an appropriate remedy in some instances, and this fits the same bill. So I want to use that same argument. Use the national parties as an example. So if you look at Article 41 again, it talks about 204Bs and circumventing the contract, how they cannot return to the route for the sole purpose of circumvention of that provision in which they lose their route. So we can identify that the national parties have sought to particularly show that circumvention is inappropriate. With that being said, I think that undelivered mail can easily lead to management circumvention of our other rights. For example, in 271Gs, this is the M39 section 271, item G, where we request that we get a special inspection based on our route. That special inspection can only occur if you're over 30 minutes, 30 minutes over 8 hours for a particular, like 3 times for a particular consecutive amount of weeks. Well, management could simply avoid their obligation to allow special inspection should they just simply not deliver the mail in such a way that would prevent you from qualifying. This is why I think this is very dangerous. You should throw this in for persuasive value. It's not going to be a crazy slam dunk contention. But if you can talk about circumvention of other rights and how it's going to create chaos if management can just not deliver whatever they want, I think that's going to be a pretty big deal. Now, this is particularly important to talk about because tomorrow Steiner goes before Congress. And we have a bet going on that we think he's going to ask for something ridiculous. We don't know what, but we think that he's trying to get the Postal Service to become something that we prefer not to be. And that is to save costs at the expense of the consumers and us. So tune into that tomorrow. Normally those things are live. I hope it is this time. I think it's at 2 p.m. Eastern time, if I'm not mistaken. Finally, we're going to go through my resolution that I'm trying to get passed, get my branch to send to the convention. So let me know in the comments if you would support this resolution. But the biggest reason, I do want to talk about the fact that I'm doing a resolution, but also the biggest reason why I'm bringing this up is because I also want you to know the arguments for the law. So I'm going to read the resolution, and in the resolution, you'll have, it's basically a breakdown of all the citations I would use in my grievance case file. And that the reason why is because I'm asking National to take a contractual position, and its contractual position should be that this is a violation of the law, and in such is also a violation of Article 3. Currently, I just recently spoke to my NBA's office. They still take the position that they're siding with National, which makes sense. You know, they're part of National. And the position is you can do this politically. You cannot do this contractually. I would have to agree to a degree. I think it's more appropriate to be a national level grievance. But in the absence of a national level grievance, we have no choice but to try and take things into our own hands any possible way we can. This is serious business. We're going to lose our public faith. If it's not already crumbled, I don't know why National is standing idly by. They are letting all of us take this into our own hands, but we're letter carriers. We can fucking handle this. This is something that we are used to. We are fighters. You know, they don't call me the Roseville Wrecking Ball for no reason. You know, in my own office, I got the Slugger, the Wrecking Ball, the Killer, and the Bruiser. They are bulldozers of men. You know, we are used to taking this fight to the local level. And if management is going to do this shit and the NALC nationally is not going to help, we owe it to ourselves to stand up for the letter carrier. Each and every one of us, even non-stewards. So that being said, I'm trying to get National to change their mind. And the voting body of the members can get management, get NALC to change their mind. Shit, they act like management sometimes. You hear that? All right, well, let me see. Here's my resolution without wasting any more time. Whereas 39 U.S. Code 101 maintains a public expectation that the service delivers 6 days per week and that they maintain a level of universal service that does not diminish in areas where it is not profitable to deliver to, that the cost of maintaining the service cannot be apportioned in such a way that would maintain different values of degrees of service in different areas, that in determining all policies for postal services, the Postal Service shall give the highest consideration to the requirement for the most expeditious collection, transportation, and delivery of important letter mails. Whereas 39 U.S. Code 3691 expects the service to preserve regular and effective access to postal services in all communities, including those in rural areas, or where post offices are not self-sustaining, and to reasonably assure postal service customers delivery, reliability, speed, and frequency consistent with reasonable rates and best business practices. Whereas, as letter carriers, each and every one of us took the following oath of office. And it's just the oath that I said earlier. In accordance with 39 U.S. Code 1011. Whereas 18 U.S. Code 1701 and 1703 maintains that it is illegal to obstruct mail, and time after time again, the service has shown that their position is violation of this is a fireable offense for any city carrier. Whereas 18 U.S. Code 1693 prohibits the carriage of mail contrary to the law. Whereas ALM 661.2, which applies to all postal employees, this includes management and upper management, claims that 39 U.S. Code 1011, 18 U.S. Code 1703, 18 U.S. Code 1693 are prohibited to be violated. Additionally, it adds in ALM 661.1 that failure for 661.2 to mention a statute does not excuse any person from complying to the statute incorporating 39 U.S. Code 101. The definition of any person includes from the Postmaster General all the way down to a first-day CCA. Whereas the Postal Service across the country is currently breaking course with their prior intention to deliver all mail each day in an effort to serve patrons mail delivery 6 days a week to avoid penalty or proper staffing. Whereas there is more first-class mail being delayed across the country than has ever been seen before, even while management has every resource to get the mail delivered and utilizing their staff in various modes of overtime. Whereas in 2022, with the passing of the Postal Service Reform Act of 2022, we had achieved in law the universal service of 6-day delivery, while also breaking management's expectation to pre-fund retirement, freeing more funds to be able to deliver the mail. Yet we have seen management intentionally deciding to do the opposite. Whereas historically, we have been regarded as the most trusted government agency because of our exceptionally reliable delivery through rain, sleet, and snow, and have been pillars of our community. The very faith that the city letter carrier has proudly built up is steadfast, crumbling before our eyes. This has been our most valuable leverage at the bargaining table. This is being undermined by the service in their refusal to deliver to patrons. Whereas even the inspection service has admitted that this behavior is not in accordance with the law, Public Law 117-108, April 6, 2022, aka the Postal Reform Act, and with the National Color Code policy in their own reports, that first-class mail must be delivered on the same day as the receipt. Refer to page 3 of report number 21262R23 and page number 6 of report number 24032-2R24. Whereas Article 3 of the National Agreement grants management the general right to manage, yet prohibits their discretion in matters that conflict with the National Agreement or the law. Resolved, that the NALC negotiate with the USPS to take the position that failure to deliver the first-class mail without utilizing all available resources, such as ODL lists and all available auxiliary assistance, to the maximum extent is a violation of the law. 39 U.S. Code 101, 39 U.S. Code 1011, 18 U.S. Code 1703, and 39 U.S. Code 1693, and as a result, is vicariously a violation of Article 3 of the National Agreement. It's sad. It's really fucking sad that we have to push something like this to the national stage and force them to make a position that this is an issue. Additionally, it's also sad that that building is going to be filled with retirees who's going to vote in the interest of whatever the national officers say. I guarantee you the national officers are not going to agree with this. They're going to recommend a no vote. We need to make sure we pass this. I'd say that if anybody else wants this resolution proposal, please request it at my email, and I will happily send you a copy, or at my Facebook. Don't forget to check out our website, www.parcelsofknowledge.com. This is put together by Philip DeGilio. Fantastic individual. This guy needs an award or something. He's great at what he does. Additionally, make sure you send those questions to NBA candidate for Region 15, Orlando Gonzalez. Send them to rosevillewreckingball@yahoo.com. Hopefully, you learned something valuable today. And as always, have a good day.
If these guys are getting educated, we will be in big trouble.
Management's been weighing you down like a bag of wet catalogs, but you don't gotta take it. You strap on the elbow of education, dig it?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Roseville Wrecking Ball. The Roseville Wrecking Ball.
The Roseville Wrecking Ball is an Article 8 scholar, and thank God, we need Article 8 scholars right now. The Grievance genius and the Roseville Wrecking Ball doing amazing work.
Tune into the Parcels of Knowledge podcast while you're on the route. That's the mailman's playbook, brother.